we are one day away from starting the Camino de Santiago. It's a Christian pilgrimage across Spain that's been walked for more than 1,000 years. There are various routes, all with the same goal, to make it to Santiago de Compostela. It's here where the remains of St. James, apostle of Jesus, reside. To get there,
you're either moving forward or you're falling behind.
My husband Peter and I will need to cover 500 miles, over the Pyrenees Mountains, through the desert like Meseta,
20 to 30 mile an hour winds. Got Kristin over here.
And finally, enduring the rain of Galicia.
Rain 30. We've seen a lot of this in the last couple weeks. Back cover.
Together, we'll celebrate the benchmarks.
Okay, big announcement.
205 miles?
And we'll share the moments of our biggest transformations.
And as I was crying out that negativity and that anger and that disappointment, I was filled up with gratitude.
We'll log our journey with the help of a pilgrim's credential, stamping it like a passport each place we stop. Because these 40-plus days will start to run together.
Day something, walking into what town?
We pick up our credentials in the city where we start the French route of the Camino de Santiago, in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, France.
We're about to go walk the Camino, start our first day. We're going to go to the pilgrim's office to get our pilgrim's passports.
You have a credential?
Because they will give us stamps along the way to prove that we've actually made the journey.
Thank you.
And here you have the albergues in Spain.
Thank you.
Okay, with the name, the number, if you can eat.
We've got reservations for a place tomorrow night to walk halfway because it's going to be the hardest part.
Horizon is the mountain.
So tomorrow's the toughest day.
Yeah. It's the highest point of this way. It's very beautiful. So you forget your legs, your...
Forget the pain.
Okay?
Like that. Okay. We're taken care of. That's so nice.
So we're going to go grab our bags. Tomorrow we have a short walk, so we're going to take it a very slow and steady the first couple days.
This morning we left the beautiful town of Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port.
This is our first day walking the Camino de Santiago. It started with our favorite comforts.
Good morning.
For me, horses. They bring back countless good memories from every stage of my life. For Peter, his comfort came in the form of snacks.
Whoa, check that out. In this beautiful countryside, and all of a sudden there is a vending machine.
You gonna come get some snacks?
If there's a shed in the middle of nowhere with a vending machine, you gotta get some gummy bears. Happy cola.
We later learned that these are considered gifts from the Camino. Somehow, this path finds a way to provide exactly what each pilgrim needs.
So last night before we went to bed, Peter asked the question, what's the difference between a pilgrimage and just a really long walk?
I think intention, the intent of what we're doing this for, and attention of kind of being in the moment and seeing the good and being grateful.
What is our intention for this walk?
What do you think our intention is for this walk?
I think to focus on each other, look for God in all places, connect with people, since we don't really have to rush. We can finally hopefully work on being the people we want to be.
Over the next month, our intentions and attention will stand true. And in return, this Camino will replenish us.
What'd you find?
Blackberries for my buddy.
That looks delicious.
Yum.
You found them?
Yeah, for you.
It will replenish us physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
So Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, Funds to give you hope and a future, offering spiritual and physical support today. Ooh. So this is definitely the hardest part for us so far. So we were coming around this little bend and Peter pointed out what a perfect time to pray for people. Like this is the time when that sweat equity could hopefully be used for the betterment of somebody else who's struggling, who wasn't physically able to come on the Camino. And that was our hope, was that us being able to come and everything opening up to give us this opportunity, that we would be able to share this experience and really walk for people who weren't able to. We have found the place where we're staying tonight.
Each town has at least one albergue, which translates to hostel. Basically, a place where we can rent a bunk bed, buy a meal, and here in Orison, France, enjoy a patio with breathtaking views of the Pyrenees Mountains.
Day 2, foggy, beautiful. We just left Orison and we're headed to Roncesvalles.
And this morning it seemed like it just kept getting more beautiful. Like as the sun came out, we saw so much livestock. Seeing the cattle in the field and then the horses and the sheep, and they all had little bells on them. It made a really beautiful sound. Peter remembered a temple in the Himalayan foothills in India that had the same sound, Divine Mother's Temple. I think one of the biggest benefits of shooting video while we walk is, well, one, being forced to take breaks, and two, really looking for beauty and really just taking a minute to just really stare at it and absorb how beautiful and how incredible life is.
We're in France, not Spain. We have just passed Roland's Fountain and have crossed in from France into Spain. So from here on out, we will be in the Spanish countryside. So this last half mile descending into Roncesvalles, lots of shade, beech tree forest, really, really beautiful. Feeling really grateful to be here.
So this morning, when we woke up, it was like the most beautifully peaceful sound. Monks singing, being piped into the dormitory.
So there was that just melodious echo. It was beautifully haunting. Lights went on, it's like, okay, wake up. Buenos dias. And then this beautiful sound, it's like, oh, we could just stay here a while and enjoy this sound.
This hostel or albergue is run by a group of basically volunteers, all from Holland.
It's really energizing to be able to start with fresh clothes and a good night's sleep. Just left Roncesvalles. It's just a beautiful morning. Ready to see what the day holds for us.
Guiding our path are markers with a scallop shell. It's a symbol of St. James and this Camino. Note how all the lines of the shell go to the same point, just like the various Camino routes all go to Santiago. For the pilgrims following those routes, they've come from all over the world. And some of them, like John, are walking much farther than our 500 miles.
And my scallop shell came from Scotland. The last time I did the Camino, I walked from England. So I walked from my family's house down to the south coast of England, caught a boat to the north coast of France, and then walked the whole length of France, and then all the way across Spain after that. I'm at a time in my life where I'm looking for something fresh, something new, some decision or some answer and direction. Yeah. And I find the Camino is fantastic for this. It gives me the time and the space I need to understand myself again, to look for me.
Well, I think we all have a similarity for being out here. And we're not busy like trying to get to our next appointment or job or lunch. Our guard's already down. We're just like, oh, I've seen you before. What's your deal? And you connect. Stopping to smell the flowers.
Yeah. One more time.
I don't know if it'll continue on. We're at a much slower pace, so people will probably trickle in as we walk. So, almost cafe con baño time.
I need a bathroom and something to drink.
We've been in the mountains, but now that we're coming out, there'll be a lot of little towns along the way. So you kind of walk until you're done.
Later that evening, I experienced an overwhelming feeling of gratitude because I realized we made the right decision in coming here. We are physically and emotionally moving forward while spending time in nature, really looking at the world around us. It's already worth it, and it's only day 3.
Climbing the walkway.
Of all the languages spoken on the Camino, there are 2 words everyone understands.
Camino.
Buen camino. It translates to good way, and it's used to wish someone well on their journey. On this 4th morning of our journey,
La 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 la.
we hit a speed bump,
La 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 la.
and Peter was doing his best to get me over it.
Is my mic working? Can you hear me now? La 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 la. This is the pasture of Vizcarrete. On our way to Zubiri. Very dramatic voice. Yep, in the shot. On the shot. Okay. Let's talk about it.
So this morning we had a bit of a scare. I was packing up my stuff and I realized that I hadn't seen my passport in a while. So we freaked out a little bit. I went through my pack, didn't see it. Peter went through his pack, didn't find it.
At first it was like freak out. Where might it be? Is it stolen? Did we lose it? And after unpacking literally everything,
Found it. It was hidden in between and on the bottom of like different layers of my backpack.
Before the Camino started, I was curious how God was going to reveal himself to us. I knew I wanted to experience him, but I didn't know how it was going to work. More and more I found that God came to us and worked through people, through other pilgrims, who strategically crossed paths with us at the exact moment to tell us exactly what we needed to hear in that moment to learn from the experience.
We saw our friend Laura, who we met on the first day walking, and she just has like the brightest personality. It was like, good morning!
Oh, hello!
Yay!
Oh,
We're
no.
documenting how awesome you are. Yay, Laura! Woo woo!
It's great.
Laura calls us her Camino soulmates, and she definitely rescued me on the Camino a couple of times.
Have you been looking back though? You haven't been looking back, have you? You should look back, just to see where you've come from.
My mind has a tendency toward depression. I usually just call it darkness because that's what it feels like. It creeps in through negativity, and it's like if God was light and joy and love and forgiveness. This is the opposite of that. And once it gets a hold of me, it could be days, it could be months. It's just so hard to get out of it. So that morning, when I thought I lost my passport, it hit. And even though I found it, I was still just so disappointed in myself. And we were walking, and Laura, I just hear her beautiful British accent saying, good morning. And it just snaps me out of it. And I am just, I just feel Laura's infectious joy and gratitude and love and all those things that she was just pouring on me. And I realized later that after seeing Laura over and over, that she was getting me out of my head, getting me out of that negativity. And I realized that I need to be that person for myself. So that was God working through Laura to teach me such a valuable lesson about loving myself, forgiving myself, and being my own #1 cheerleader.
This is how fast I feel like I'm going on the Camino. All perspective, huh?
Everything's got their own Camino.
This little guy too.
All of us are walking our own Caminos, here on this pilgrimage and in everyday life. Each one of us is working through our own respective struggles, and we navigate through it the best we can.
So here we are halfway through day 4, and we've come across this tree, and it's just a great example of how in life you need to make adjustments. And this tree started off in a direction, and it didn't work out, and it's continued to adapt and adjust. In a way, it's kind of a cornerstone of the landscape at this point.
No matter what obstacle you might be facing right now, I wish you well on your journey. Buen Camino.
It's probably like, move it or lose it, sister.
Let's get those packs on.
Yeah.
Good
Morning.
Welcome to day 5 of our Camino de Santiago.
This is on CP.
We say our because each person is having a very different Camino on a very different time schedule.
Hola, buen camino.
Hola, buen camino.
Most people are probably on day 3. We're on day 5, and we're just taking it easy. So
This morning when we left the albergue, it was pretty foggy out and just beautiful. Good morning, Peter.
and then we saw a great waterfall, and might be the only waterfall we'll see.
We've also been looking for ways that people have randomly crossed our paths and how they have directed our steps. So just before the waterfall, we met Jerry from New Jersey, and we kind of slowed down a little bit and walked with him. And then that, I think, is why we heard the waterfall, stopped to really spend some time there. So it was really great just to have a minute to just be there. So what happened?
So while we were flying over that waterfall, there was all of a sudden a major disruption in the flight. I don't know if static electricity would do that. I think I would have lost the drone entirely, but
Zapped it. Took a little bite out of it.
Yep. I lost a chunk of rotor blade. It will make adjustments. This one here is going to have to work a lot harder. Not being able to fly the drone would be a major setback at this point, so we're definitely going to need a new rotor blade. Luckily, we're only a day and a half away from Pamplona, which is the biggest city for quite a while, so hopefully we can figure it out there.
It looks like it's dancing.
So today was a challenge for Peter because of the drone. But it ended with like the biggest gift.
Universal chicken call. Oh, Peter's favorite. Love chickens. Chicken whisperer, this guy.
We had chickens. We had 8 chickens. And they make these sweet little noises. They take dust baths. They provide eggs, which is a plus, but they have little personalities too, and it's really neat to discover those. The Camino gives you exactly what you need, and I guess I needed my spirit animal. And the chicken showed up. Whether they're chickens in Spain or chickens in the US, they behave the same.
We have stayed at the most amazing place. One of my favorite things about the Camino so far is being able to stop at some of these just like ancient churches, like built in the 1200s, 1300s, and they just feel so good. It just feels like a warm hug when you sit down in there. Would you agree?
Yeah, just a really special place.
In the Esteribar Valley is the town of Zabeldica. To get here, we crossed over the Argo River and followed the historical path of the Camino de Santiago. We arrived at this 13th century church of San Esteban. We climbed its stairs made of stone, which seemed polished from 800 years of visitors, and we arrived in the bell tower. This bell is presumed to be the oldest in the region of Navarre. It dates back to 1377, and they actually invite pilgrims to ring it. Looking through the church's keyhole is the site that welcomes visitors to this historic church.
It was run by a group of sisters, a group of nuns, who are just the sweetest. Sometimes there is a language barrier, but you can still just feel love. Like, I understand love, and I feel love. And they were just so sweet.
The nuns are from the Society of the Sacred Heart, whose mission is to communicate the love of the heart of Jesus. And they do that by emotionally and spiritually supporting the pilgrims on the Camino.
We meet pilgrims from the whole world, and we receive much more than we give.
It's wonderful, no? To listen to you is for us is a present.
So each night at the church in Zabeldica, they have a pilgrim's prayer that people who are staying right next to that church are invited to come and partake in.
They had this sitting room up over the chapel with some seating around the outside and then some cushions on the floor.
They have a reading in several different languages. The sisters are all there to help counsel you.
And we try to facilitate the sharing with a lot of respect.
Nobody preaches to you, but just listens and give you the opportunity to say what you have in your heart. Pilgrims very easily open themselves and give what they have inside.
At Jesus' feet sits a single candle that illuminates pilgrims' prayers or well wishes, written on these neon Camino-themed arrows. The sisters even write their own while waiting to greet visitors. It's a modern twist inside a holy place that's home to centuries of prayers.
Many feelings come here, and the feeling, well, I say energy, but for me it is real presence, because where many people has cried, prayed, or enjoyed, there is a lot of energy. There is people who says, I have, how do you say in English, eso.
Maybe that energy is to credit for my own experience in this sacred place.
So after the pilgrim's prayer, after we were all together, I went to sleep that night in Zabeldica, and I had the most vivid dream. In this dream, I was killed in a car wreck. I was driving and I wasn't paying attention, and I was sideswiped by something, and all of a sudden the car and me, we were flying through this gray tunnel. I realized I had been killed. And oddly enough, I thought, well, this is a good thing, because that means I'm probably gonna meet God here pretty soon. I'm in this big round waiting room, all gray, and these kind of cheap office chairs are along the outside of the room, and I'm just waiting for him. I can tell that someone is trying to save the human version of myself, trying to help my body, but someplace else, because I could feel parts of me being worked on, but it wasn't happening in the form that I was currently in. And then I have an encounter with God. I see these giant hands wrap around my upper torso of this body, my body that I'm looking at, and he cups almost like my heart and brings me back to life. When I wake up from that dream, they have Bob Dylan playing overhead in the albergue, and the song is, and the lyric is, "The times they are a-changin'." I was like, whoa, what was that? So I leave the upstairs of the albergue where everybody was sleeping, all of our beds were aligned, and I go down the steps, and I go into the breakfast area where Peter and Laura were already there. And I told them, I was like, man, I just had the craziest dream. And I told them about dying and being brought back to life in God's giant hands wrapping around my torso and bringing me back to life. And Peter said, it sounds like a resurrection. So here is what I am choosing to believe. Going into this, I prayed for transformation. That was my prayer. And I realize now that's a very dangerous prayer, because transformation might just happen. With me, it happened threefold on the Camino. This was the first time, and this was through the subconscious. What I'm choosing to believe from that dream is that if a part of me did die that night in Zabeldica, that I witnessed through that dream, it's a part of me that I no longer need, a part of me that no longer serves, the part of me that is wanting to get closer to God and be the more pure, true version of myself. And that part is that darkness that clouds my mind. And so I am choosing to believe that that part of me died that night in Zabeldica. Now, looking back at it now, it's been 8 months. It came close to coming back on the Camino one time. There was an emotional purge, and then I had a crazy physical reaction, but I'll tell you about that later when it happens. It's a couple weeks away. But it's been 8 months and it hasn't come back.
As we get closer to the center of Pamplona, signs of the Camino welcome us to this capital of the Navarre province. Pamplona is known as the home of the running of the bulls, and it is an impressive sight from above.
We're about to walk into Pamplona, and it's like the most dramatic entrance of any entrance into a city I think that I've seen.
Yeah, you don't build it like this anymore.
Since medieval times, pilgrims walking the Camino de Santiago have entered the old city through the Portal de Francia. This military stronghold was constructed in 1553.
So we are hustling through Pamplona, and we are searching for a drone propeller to fix Peter's drone, and I need an audio windscreen. And we have 20 minutes to find this one store in Pamplona that might be able to help us out with both, but it closes.
Yeah, and then this is a square, which is awesome. So we'll definitely check this out on the way back.
In hindsight, running errands around Pamplona was a gift because we got to see the city at a relatively high speed. Our first stop was a success.
So very exciting. Perfecto. Thank you so much.
New windscreens for audio recorder.
But we still don't have part for Peter's drone.
My first inclination was to go to like the mall, to the electronics store. So we're moving forward without having to move forward. People just looked at me like it was almost like it didn't exist. So after checking a couple places and walking around town after having a full day walking, pretty much just gave up.
This is what Peter looks like when he's frustrated.
What else?
That's it. That's all he does.
And we were walking back, and kind of one of the main streets in almost like a square we were walking through, and just right there was a picture of a drone, and there was a drone school.
Just saw this. He's gonna drool at the window.
It wasn't even open. It was getting late by this point, but there was someone inside, so we just knocked on the glass, and this gentleman stopped whatever he was doing, and asked what was going on. Found out we were walking the Camino, and he had walked it himself. That was his time, and he opened the door to help us out, and he showed me a website where we could order the propeller and just have it shipped ahead to one of the next towns we were walking through. That guy was so helpful and gave so much of his time. Wow. We're gonna have to pay that forward somehow. Still don't have the drone propeller, but we're really close.
Okay. Fellow pilgrims.
He started his pilgrimage on September 11th, 2001, and he just wanted to let us know how heavy that was for the whole world, for good people in the world. So.
Your face has changed a lot.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Wow. That's good. Here's a stranger that just laid this gift out, and I think I shifted from frustration to gratitude, and it was such a big shift. I was at a loss for words. We tried to give him some money. He wouldn't take anything, and he just wanted to make sure it was right and that we were helped.
To celebrate our progress, we treated ourselves to gelato.
Happy. Thank you so much. That's amazing. That is beautiful.
We'll end this 6th day with views of the Pamplona Cathedral and the perspective that Peter learned in this historic city, whose people are as beautiful as its architecture.
It was a really good life lesson because we set expectations for ourselves, and often the anger and frustration comes from not meeting those expectations. If we can just do our best, let go of the results, and live in a space of gratitude, our life will just be so much less stressful because we won't have that pressure. There's a great saying, let go and let God. Oh, that's pretty. We got light and mist. We are in Pamplona, heading toward the mountains.
Had some really nice help getting out of Pamplona.
This old man, we were kind of like a little bit off, and he looked over and he was just walking real slow, kind of hunched, and with everything he got, just buen camino, and then pointed us in the right direction, because we weren't quite there. What you got there, buddy?
Okay. All right, so I got set up. I stuck my fingers in something weird and they got all swollen this morning. So the nice lady in the pharmacia hooked me up. Gracias, farmacia.
Well, inside the pharmacy, we met Leah from Canada.
The Camino provides. Everybody's presented with what they need when they need it.
This is her second time walking the Camino, and she moves quick. As I tried to keep up, and Peter tried to catch up.
Buen camino.
Leah told me about a lesson from her first Camino.
I'd come out of two fairly serious relationships and I was chronically dating. And I met this guy on the Camino. I had this moment where I just heard his voice and it was like, this is not what you need. This is not why you're here. And I was like, okay, backed off completely. I'm not religious, but for the next 3 days I thought, you know what, I'm gonna pray about this. And so I did. Every day I was like, I don't know what my problem is. I'm not gonna meet anyone. Can you help me be okay with that? Can you help me be okay with just being me?
Right after we said goodbye to Leah, we took a break to shoot this field of sunflowers. When a woman from Ohio stopped to talk to us, she was giving away cards from a deck. Each one had a different scripture. I closed my eyes and picked. I got this one. Clothe yourselves with the beauty that comes from within, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is so precious to God.
All right, you ready?
This was my favorite morning on the Camino, and for good reason.
What time is it, Peter?
Time is 6:09 a.m. To your far right, the big glow is Pamplona, and it's Kristin's birthday today.
We celebrated it by climbing up Alto del Perdón.
We made it to the top of the mountain. It is still dark.
We climbed early to see this work of art during sunrise. It's called Monument to the Pilgrim, and it was created by Vicente Galbete. These metal figures represent pilgrims from different eras, all heading west toward Santiago, just like us. It's a fitting view, as several significant pilgrims would be sharing this day's journey with us. First, it was Leah, but she was walking the opposite direction. She said her second Camino wasn't feeling right, so she was backtracking to catch a bus and jump ahead. We made our way to the next town of Uterga, where we welcomed my 37th year with brunch. It was filled with several café con leches, local melons, and Mark from Australia, who was celebrating his lost hat being returned by a courier. This would be the first of several Camino brunches with our new friend. After feasting, our path intersected with Kristin from Chicago. That's her on the left of Peter. We encouraged each other to take an alternate route that was 2 extra miles, so we could experience this church. Santa Maria de Unate. Construction on its octagon shape started as early as 1170. While walking here, Kristin shared how her faith has been strengthened by overcoming struggles with her knees.
I mean, I've never walked this much in a day before, and this is the 5th day of that. And all the miracles that occur to support me to keep going. I mean, it's worth it just to take that leap of faith that I can do something that's completely beyond what my mind could possibly say is doable. And here I am.
Thank you, Kristin.
Yeah, thank you, Kristin.
After leaving the church, we passed through sunflower fields, then witnessed the unique offerings of the next town. In this case, a festival. The only problem for us is that yellow arrow marks our path. This would be our only detour caused by cattle. At this point, we've walked roughly 50 miles, and we still have around 450 miles to go. It's a perfect place to begin my 37th year.
Today's day 9.
Really?
Yeah.
We really got to start walking this Camino.
So far, it seems like we've spent half our time walking and half our time shooting video, capturing the beauty of the Camino. Like this Romanesque bridge. It gives its name to the city, Puente la Reina, which means Queen's Bridge. A queen had this built in the 11th century to make it easier for pilgrims to cross over the Arga River and head towards Santiago. I wonder if she realized then that her request would continue to support seekers for the next 1,000 years.
Sono more.
Buen Camino.
More means blackberries in Italian.
Whoa. So I'm shooting close-ups of flowers, and I look up, and Peter has collected these.
More.
Blackberries.
Once again, the Camino provides. Its biggest gift to us so far.
We realized somewhere along the way that this was the most time we've ever spent with one another. Day in, day out, side by side. This trip kind of celebrates our 10-year wedding anniversary.
We met on a blind date.
Hola.
Hola. A mutual friend, picked us up. Didn't tell either of us the other one was going to be there. And we spent the day together, and the rest is history. Wow, it's cold.
It hurts. Like, I know it's good for us, but
I don't know how this water is so cold.
it's like an ice bath.
That was an unexpected gift.
Pretty, huh? Zinnias?
See, day 10, and we are just above Estella in a town called Ayugi, and there's a blacksmith named Jesus
Gracias.
who was very nice to us, showed us some of his work. Just an unexpected surprise. Like, he sees so many people. Not only that, but kind of spent time with us. Like, I felt like we were able to communicate really well. You know, he slowed down, used simpler words. For next time, I'm really feeling like that would be my motivation to learn Spanish. You know, it's more because I feel like we're missing connections and the opportunity to really tell people how much we appreciate them. We've just walked a long uphill section, so our voices changed just a little bit.
Oh, is this the wine? A legendary wine fountain is what we're walking up to. So I have been sober of alcohol 3 years and 9 months. But I gave up alcohol as an offering to God because I wanted to more clearly hear Him. And I didn't want to miss any signs. And I didn't want to lose days being drunk or hungover, because I personally don't do a really good job with moderation. So as we were leaving the church, we stopped and talked to a man who helped us with directions. His name was Brent, and come to find out he is a Catholic priest. And he was talking about the importance of listening to that inner voice, and that voice being God's. And I said, well, how do you do that?
Quiet. Spending time in quiet. It's easy to allow so many things to distract us and to pull us away, and so spending regular, I would say daily time in quiet and in prayer, communion with the Lord, in whatever way that takes shape. I mean, because there's no shortage of ways to pray, right?
Hola.
What just happened?
We just saw this tunnel, and as we were walking through, we were making random bird sounds like caw, just because we're in a tunnel. And then we found that if you stand right in the middle, it has this really nice echo.
Like being in a cathedral.
Yeah, and so we kind of sang, but
Someone was coming up, we were doing like Om, and just enjoying the echo. And then someone came up, and I'm like, hey, there's someone coming. And
then this happened.
that was amazing.
So that is the voice of Melissa, who is from New York. She spent a year doing like singing training, and she said the song that she sang just came to her, but it's one of the songs that monks sing, and it was just divine.
So,
what a wonderful example of the Camino provides. Like, we realized it was a neat situation. It's like, oh, if we just had someone who could sing. And there's Melissa. We should be getting close to the albergue where we are going to stay tonight.
Monjardin. What do you say, Kristin Bear?
Hi.
My God is awesome, heals me when I'm broken, strength where I've been weakened, forever He will reign.
Once we finally made it to the Oasis Trails albergue, their volunteers welcomed us with song. This was after they gathered buckets of cold water for us to soak our feet, where we got to join Melissa, who sang for us in the tunnel.
My God is awesome, heals me when I'm broken.
Later that evening, Mia led a prayer and meditation service, refilling us physically and spiritually as we prepare for the next day, which would be one of our longest distances yet.
My God is awesome, Savior of the whole world, giver of salvation, by His stripes I am healed. My God is awesome, today I am forgiven, His grace is why I'm living, praise His holy name.
Are they coming? I'm about to be swarmed, I can't wait. That was amazing.
We just had a crossing of the sheep. Yeah. A lamb stampede. This morning we're going to Los Arcos. Once we get there, we'll finally get a new drone propeller. ¿Tiene un paquete? Sí. Peter. Here it is. Wow. Oh, muchas gracias. Yeah. So I was just looking back through my notes, and it was last Wednesday. We were walking from Zubiri to Zabaldika, flying out over the waterfall, and something happened to the drone. I lost a chunk of rotor blade. In Pamplona, there was a drone school, and they suggested a website with the affiliate of DJI. We could order it, ship it ahead. So we did, we ordered it. They wrapped this good. It was just Kristin's birthday, but I sure do feel like it's my birthday. Ta-ta-da-da.
Wow.
It fits.
Our efforts to document all angles of this Camino have been saved, thanks to some kind-hearted people who were willing to help these desperate pilgrims. Now, Peter has a fresh pair of rotor blades to fly and a vast amount of Spanish countryside to capture.
Oh, buen Camino.
Day 12 started in Sansol, But as we made our way to Logroño, we had a bit of a challenge with communication.
It's been a beautiful, cool morning, and I messed up a little bit. Kristin was stopped to film, so I broke away, and there are these kind of rocky cliff faces off a few miles away, so I went up to the top of the hill to get drone footage, and then when Kristin walked by, I called out and she kept going. I didn't let her know where I was going to be, and
I thought I lost him. I was like, how can I lose him? So yeah, a little hiccup today.
A little hiccup.
But we found each other. It took a little bit.
Needed some emotional recovery time after that. So, luckily I still have a walking buddy.
We are in a growing season, just like the plants beneath Peter's drone, which we're starting to see a lot more. Grapes. We're leaving the province of Navarra and entering La Rioja. It's an area known for Rioja wine, and it's been that way for a long time. Production in this region dates back 2,000 years. Today, La Rioja has more than 500 wineries, and their harvest is just a few weeks away.
We are taking a little break, and Peter found an almond tree. So this is my first time ever eating an almond that did not come from a bag. So this is how you do it. At least this is how we're guessing you do it. Hey, pretty. Whoa, beautiful.
They had more flavor and more moisture. We also appreciated them more because we had to work to get them.
Those are better than gummy bears.
We're walking into Viana. It is beautiful. This is our lunch stop.
There's been no shortage of calorie intake.
But the food is just so good.
How you doing, Kristin?
Having a nice little rest, thanking this tree for providing shade. So I'm literally just watching the pine needles wave in the wind. It is really nice.
We realized we just surpassed 100 miles.
Yay!
Más o menos. Oh, look.
What do you see?
Geese or swan? Geese or swan? Whoa. That's a flyover.
Just over an hour's walk southwest of Logroño, the Camino's path takes you right next to this, the La Grajeda Reservoir. It was formed in 1883 to help irrigate orchards south of the city. Today, it's a park that spans more than 1,000 acres.
So what do you see?
A lot of carp. Earlier, it looked like you could almost walk across these. A lot of carp, geese, duck, swan.
Are you surprised to see this really nice lake on the Camino?
Yeah, we're just on the way out of Logroño, and we got buzzed by swan earlier, and then where are they going? And it was really nice little estuary.
Right by the water, this rose garden greets visitors and pilgrims walking the Camino. This variety of flower is the St. James Way rose, in honor of St. James, whose remains we are walking to in Santiago.
It's 100 miles.
The farthest I've ever walked, for sure. You?
Yeah.
You got any questions for me, Mr. Fleisher?
Yeah. How was it spending 43 days with someone that has bad body odor?
I think you always think you smell worse than you actually do.
Hey there. What day are we on?
Day 14.
Day 14. We have been walking through vineyards for a couple days now.
Some of the grapes have already been picked and they're laying there waiting to be collected.
The Camino's been especially nice because it's just a reminder how much I like Peter. Peter, did you have a question up front? I saw your hand.
No, that was a...
For me, life wasn't working. That's why we're on the Camino. It wasn't working. It just didn't make sense anymore. I was working constantly, making the most money I'd ever made, but then everything else around me was falling apart. We needed a substantial amount of time to focus on our relationship,
My buddy.
focus on each other, and just be together. Almost like starting over in a way.
Just before 4, we walked through Najera and some beautiful cliffs and look like quick cliff dwellings. And
We later learned that these caves were once used as a way of defense until the 10th or 11th centuries. Above the cliffs, at the highest point on top of this mountain, is a cross called Cruz Malpica. Today, this unique view is simply the backyard to the people who live, work, or worship on the western side of Najera.
now we've decided to push on and go another few miles. So we're gonna go up and over this little ridge.
The next village is 3 miles away.
So next up is Azofra. It's really nice right now because it's just us. Beauty and nature all around us. We made it to Azofra.
15-mile day. All right.
In about an hour, we'll have a chance encounter here with a fellow pilgrim who will invite us on a separate pilgrimage that's even older than the Camino de Santiago.
We're heading to the monasteries of Yuso and Suzo, which are UNESCO World Heritage Sites. We're in a car because it would be at least a full day to walk there, sleep, and then a full day to walk back. So we're getting a ride.
Our traveling companion is a fellow pilgrim, Louis from France. We met him the night before in the city of Azofra. He invited us to accompany him on a Camino detour to here. This is San Millán de la Cogolla. It's home to 2 monasteries, the lower and newer monastery in the valley, called Yuso. The upper and older monastery, built against the mountain, is called Suso. Monks have resided in this valley for more than 1,400 years, and it all started with Saint Millán.
It's a monastery and a church that was built onto a cave system, which was where San Millán used to meditate. These priests, before all the shiny giant churches and things, they would just go in a cave. They would just live their life in a cave praying, or we don't even really know what they did, but that was the origin of the saints.
Because San Millán lived in that cave.
San Millán was the patron saint of Spain before Santiago.
And here we have the life of San Millán as well. He's preaching in Berceo, giving alms to the poor, and this is another miracle.
It's really neat. This pilgrimage predates the Camino de Santiago.
And his remains are in the monastery of Yuso.
Yuso is also significant to the history of the native Spanish language, Castellano. It's inside this monastery where the language was first written down by a monk in the 10th century. After exploring with Louis and learning about Saint Millán during the day, that evening we learned about Saint Dominic, Santo Domingo, in the town and cathedral that carry his name. Peter was super excited to be here because the church houses live chickens. They're in honor of a miracle by Santo Domingo that involved saving a wrongly accused pilgrim who was walking the Camino. Illuminating the church was light coming through this stained glass window. The rosette is said to represent the Father who sends us the gift of the Holy Spirit.
As we walked around and looked at this magnificent building, I thought, you know what? I haven't really experienced God in a few days. I just felt spiritually dry. So I asked him, "Where are you?" And then I noticed that a group of people all wearing the same color started to enter the church, and soon they started to sing. And I realized, there you are. Thank you. And then I looked up and I saw a statue of Jesus on the cross. The light was hitting his face so perfectly. And I thought, there you are. The lesson I learned that night in the cathedral was that whenever I am feeling spiritually dry or that God isn't with me, all I have to do is ask, where are you?
It's our 16th day walking.
All right. Definitely can't see it in the viewfinder.
Time in solitude is starting to get to us.
Paraglider.
In a good way.
Somebody needs breakfast.
All
right, you take that.
So we have left La Rioja.
And now we're in Castilla y León.
Check out the rainbow on Castilla. This guy just looks extra big today. We are making it a point to go into every church that we see, which is nice because there is a really nice old church in every single town.
The last church we'd visit on this day was in Belorado. It's called Iglesia de Santa Maria la Mayor. Inside a poster with Jesus' picture said, "Camina con nosotros," walk with us. Their pilgrim's blessing said since the 13th century, this church has seen thousands of pilgrims pass by on their way to Santiago. You are continuing this tradition through your great efforts. We now want to think about the reasons that make us walk the way to Santiago. There are 3 possible reasons. The first is to thank God for all the beautiful things we have experienced in our lives. We give thanks that we are lucky enough to experience the reality of the Camino de Santiago. The second is that each one of us has in his heart a certain motivation for this pilgrimage. For example, we're looking for an answer to a question or hoping for a desire to be granted. Maybe we search for forgiveness. Or maybe only God knows the reason why we're on the road to Santiago. We pray that each of us, through the Apostle St. James, may find what he's looking for.
All right, a little disheveled there. Woo! Woo-woo! Oh, there's the Burgess Cathedral.
This Gothic church made a great shelter from the rain. Dedicated to the Virgin Mary, its first stone was laid in the year 1221. It was completed around 300 years later. Our favorite views from inside were while looking up, especially here while standing in the Constable Chapel.
What lessons have you learned since we started the Camino?
Just that life is short, that you got to do what you feel like you need to do in life, whether that's your family or your job, or if you're going to have any spiritual aspirations, you just got to make time for your priorities.
So the rain just picked up for a little bit, and the wind. We have about 2.5 miles to go.
The rain also meant we got to explore this path on our own and rediscover something that we had been taking advantage of for the last 18 days.
Hey, there's sun on this side. Sunshine on the other side of the tunnel.
We did find one other traveler who was on a journey of his own, this terrestrial gastropod mollusk, or land snail. Recording this gave me a break from walking, and also a shift in perspective. Seeing this broader view of his trip, I want to tell him, keep going, you're making progress. And I wonder if how I see him is how God sees me. Would God encourage me in that same way? Just keep going, you're making progress on the Camino and in life. I think he would.
¿Quién
te guía y te acompaña en tu soledad.
My favorite part of our 19th day was how it ended in the town of Hontanas, inside this albergue and restaurant called Fuente Estrella. We listened as Ma Cruz Diaz Iglesia sang to us about the Camino's pilgrims, called peregrinos in Spanish.
Peregrino, que a veces vas sin un rumbo en tu caminar. Peregrino, que vas cansado de tanto andar.
We are now in the early stages of the meseta, and boy, is it windy.
We just came down that. That's the tip of the meseta.
Meseta means plateau in Spanish.
We're walking this way into town.
It's an expansive area of high plains in central Spain. Pilgrims on the French route of the Camino de Santiago will traverse the meseta for roughly 130 miles.
Here comes the bike home. Let's check it out.
For one pilgrim we met, the meseta was her favorite part of walking the Camino. The mostly flat terrain, vast views across its golden landscape, and time away from society, because there are fewer rest stops, and congregating underneath a shade tree is pretty much impossible, because there are none. There are plenty of reasons to love the meseta.
A little windy.
However,
20 to 30 mile an hour winds.
for me,
Got Kristin over here.
it broke me.
Kristin Bear. Good job.
But that's still a few days away.
Peregrino, que a veces vas.
Until then, more wind.
Mi Dios, que me dio la libertad. Solo él, mi Dios, me guiará.
How's it been so far, Kristin?
I mean, this is probably the hardest part
How so?
since it's flatter. Several people have said that. It's just difficult because there's just so many long stretches where there's nothing. Usually, like, the change in the terrain kind of keeps your mind busy, but when it's just flat, it makes it a little harder.
So we just went through a town that we crossed the Orbiga River, which had what we've heard is one of the longest Roman bridges.
It's in the town Hospital de Orbigo. This 13th century bridge was built over an even older Roman bridge. It's known as Paso Honoroso, Honorable Crossing. Its name is a tribute to a legendary medieval tournament in 1434. The story goes that a chivalrous knight from León named Suero de Quiñones challenged 300 knights to a joust, refusing to let them cross this bridge. The fight was for love, and the knight later won the heart of the woman who held his own. Camino expert and author John Brierley made a connection about this historical site that could not have been more perfect to explain this day on our Camino. He wrote, "What of our own inner battles, the jousting tournaments of the soul? How easily do we fall, and how quickly do we get up again? True greatness is not in never falling, but picking ourselves up every time we do." For some reason, this stretch brought me to my mental breaking point. It happened maybe a mile before we first saw Astorga, before passing by the stone cross that welcomes you to the city. As we walked, memories of a past frustration slowly started to bubble up in my mind. Maybe the warmth of the day added to the inner fire that brought that frustration to a rolling boil.
So this was the moment that I broke. And what broke me was thoughts of personal weakness, of not being strong enough to stand up for myself. So a couple years before the Camino, Peter's dad moved in with us for a month.
My dad was having some issues, some financial issues that were jeopardizing his living situation.
18 months later, we finally forced him to leave.
The 1 year mark, there was a lot more tension with my dad. Kristin had a lot of a lot of hostility and issues at work also. So I felt like she dreaded going to work, and she also dreaded coming home, so there was no safe place for her.
But I just couldn't say, you need to leave, or you need to pay rent, or you need to contribute. I just did not have the strength to say anything. And at that point, Peter had to choose between us. Peter had to choose between his dad, who had left him when he was a kid, or he had to pick me, because he couldn't have both. And there was a while that I didn't know what he would choose. So I was thinking about this on the Camino, walking, and it just kept coming up. And these thoughts, the negativity had come up during the meseta, but it had finally just like, I'd had enough. And I threw my poles down and I put my butt in the dirt and sat there and put my hands over my eyes and I cried. And as I was crying out that negativity and that anger and that disappointment in my lack of strength, something else happened. I was filled up with gratitude. Thoughts started to come about the people that God had put in our life to help us through that challenge in our marriage. I started thinking about our friend Yvonne, who is a pastor and my mentor. And I was thinking about how she just poured into us. She started counseling us. She started checking in on us, giving us like skills on how to spend more time together, things to say to work on all of our relationships. And I was just so grateful being able to finally see it in that perspective, to try to see where God's hand was in one of the most challenging times in our relationship.
And this is why we came to walk the Camino, to heal, to set our lives on a new trajectory.
And once that gratitude came, it just felt like that whole challenge had just been purged emotionally from me. Like I was finally ready to get over it.
Looking back at that initial moment of emotional defeat, John Brierley's words from earlier in our day were perfect. How easily do we fall, and how quickly do we get up again? True greatness is not in never falling, but picking ourselves up every time we do.
Because I think the last 3 years have really been the hardest ever. Hardest on our relationship. We also grew the most. Challenges are hard, as long as you get through them.
We arrived in Astorga and checked in to Albergue de Peregrinos Siervas de Maria, Servants of Mary. Freshly showered and basking in a setting sun, I felt emotionally cleansed. What I didn't know was that by the next morning, I would also feel physically cleansed. But it won't be an enjoyable process.
Maybe we'll just do this later.
How did it feel being sick? Why did you get sick?
All right, we didn't start walking this morning. Everyone's gone. How you doing?
I'm sick.
Yeah?
Estoy enfermo.
Yeah, something didn't agree with your tummy.
Yeah, so yesterday was a challenging day because after we saw all these beautiful things and the cute little dairy cows and all that, like some past like negativity came up, and then I stopped and cried.
And then that night after breaking down in the meseta, I started puking and puked through the morning. All the pilgrims are supposed to leave the albergues. Usually, times vary, but this one was 8 o'clock in the morning. And at 7:50, I got diarrhea, basically. I was like, all right, how do I walk the Camino? It was just bad.
I puked in that waistband because we had to leave the rooms because they're cleaning the rooms. So now we're like in the lobby area, and I'm just trying to like not puke. So I'm leaving something behind in Astorga.
But I feel like I purged that negativity. I feel like I emotionally purged it while walking the meseta, and then that night my body just physically purged everything. It was like
starting from scratch.
Yeah, fresh start.
Fresh. So fresh. So fresh.
Sunrise. Kristin's smiling again.
Taking it slow. Feeling better. Peter took great care of me. He did a great job. So yeah, day something, 20 something, I don't know.
26.
25 was a scratch.
We made our way out of Astorga, thanks to a taxi ride, then walked the next 3.5 miles. The sickness has subsided, but I was still feeling quite a bit off.
Just keep walking.
The grape is talking to you.
This makes me really happy. Should I eat him?
Yeah.
As we slowly made progress uphill, we realized we had made a mistake. During our morning taxi ride, we left behind a small camera called an Osmo Pocket sitting in the back seat of the car. We feared it was gone for good, along with its footage. But near the end of our day...
All right, Fonsa Badon. Here we come, here we are.
We made it.
The camera came back to us through our kind taxi driver.
Jose saved the day twice.
Jose's taxi also played a significant role in the start of our day. Because when he dropped us off, we opened the car doors and bumped right into Pierre, whom we first met in Zabaldika 21 days earlier. It was here, in Zabaldika, during a heartfelt pilgrim's prayer and meditation, where Pierre shared why he's walking the Camino.
My wife died recently, and for me it was a question of not understanding why I can't actually deal with her passing, and I'm quite shocked at the fact that I am still traumatized, and it's been just on 2 years when I say recently. It feels like yesterday.
When we sat together, Pierre told me about his late wife, Jeanette, who was an activist in South Africa, and about his lessons from the Camino.
I believe that there is a certain amount of help that I have found on this journey, even by just talking to passerby. I found that sometimes just the odd comment from someone that you just casually meet up with as you're walking along, and suddenly there's things that are reeling around in my head as a result of that. There was one woman who I was walking with, and she just made some comment in passing about, that actually where you place your focus is where you place your energy.
Where you place your focus is where you place your energy. To me, that means releasing my past insecurities in my relationship with Peter and placing my focus on the countless moments of sweetness with the man who loves me.
I'm gonna try to catch the last of what's happening back here.
And continues to choose me.
The Camino is an incredibly personal journey, I've realized, with everyone that I've spoken to. And I think it is a very, very precious opportunity to take time out and to actually make sense of whatever it is that you're trying to actually approach.
Nailed it.
Each lesson we learned during our pilgrimage came at the perfect time.
This is the end of what day?
26.
End of day 26. We're in the middle of the street.
In the middle of the street, I was rubbing my tummy.
And each lesson is still supporting us.
It's a nice song.
In the middle of the...
Long after we left Santiago.
Ooh.
It's nice.
Our day 27 started early because by sunrise, we wanted to reach one of the most famous stops on the Camino, Cruz de Ferro, the Iron Cross. It's an altar on top of the highest point on this mountain pass. Beneath it is a mound of stones, many of which were carried here by pilgrims, including Peter.
Part of the journey is you bring stones, which represent like your weight and your burden, and then here at the Iron Cross, you leave them behind.
Leaving your stone can be a very personal experience. However, this is such a popular stop for pilgrims. A line often forms to take pictures, capturing an iconic Camino symbol of shedding what you no longer need. I later learned that the original Iron Cross is now living in a museum in Astorga, the town where I recently shed plenty of what I no longer need.
You've been carrying all those rocks?
They've been in my pack.
Each one carefully chosen for a friend or family member.
They've been in there so long that they've rubbed together and created rock dust. So some people bring them from home, some people pick them up along the way, and this is kind of a combination, and just kind of carried them along with us. So now we get to finally drop it off.
Yeah, let's walk it to the base, and then just like we can give them a little toss. We can set them free.
So we brought rocks up, and I felt like I didn't want to let them go. And it's like, oh, these are our burdens that we carry.
What are you thinking?
Sometimes we're attached to the we carry around with us.
You don't want to leave it?
It might feel better to take them with us to the end and throw them in the ocean.
So we're going to keep the rocks.
Keep the rocks.
Peter's going to keep the rocks.
Keep them to the end.
And carrying them all the way.
Throw them in the sea. That way they're not here for someone else to pick up.
So once we got up here and started getting footage, I think the weight of these rocks was felt a little bit more. We saw one of our friends, he's from New Mexico, like me, and he had said that a few days ago that a friend of his was killed in a car accident. So he picked up a rock and carried that for his friend. And so I thought about how heavy that was for him in getting here and leaving the rock here, and how emotional it was for him, and then wondering what else all of these other pilgrims are carrying and leaving here. Near the Iron Cross, nestled into the trees, is a small chapel dedicated to St. James. It was built in our birth year, 1982. It's here where we rested on its porch. Did you tell me about the flowers you saw yesterday?
Yeah, there was a few of these flowers, and it looked like someone had dropped petals or dropped flowers along the trail. There were only a couple. And then we get up here, and this field is blanketed with them. I haven't seen anything like it. They just grow straight out of the ground, and
Almost like a lotus. Comes from the dirt, comes from the mud, and it rises above to be that beautiful petal. So Peter had the analysis that it's kind of similar to what we're seeing, like rising above the burdens and the challenges and the mud to blossom.
yeah, I said all those things.
You said all those things.
All right, we are leaving Ponferrada, which might mean Iron Bridge, and we're going under a giant iron bridge on our way out, not the original Iron Bridge. But we were so tired from yesterday. I think we were sleeping as we walked, half awake. So we stopped and had 2 café con leche grandes.
Each.
And now
Feeling good.
we are ready
To go so fast.
to go so fast.
Our Camino is now 75% complete. We have 118 miles left. As soon as I learned we had 130-ish miles left to walk, my perspective completely changed. The end was coming. All of a sudden, the Camino was not this never-ending repetitive walk. It was something to be cherished, because it was almost over. I need to do that with life. Live life like it's almost over, not that it's never ending. On day 29, we finally got to witness what we had hoped we would see when we first started walking through vineyards almost a month earlier.
Good morning. It's a little drizzly, but it's harvest time for the grapes.
Very exciting. So we've been walking through grapes, 2 different regions for weeks and weeks. And now finally, all the people are out in the fields cutting the grapes to take them, to make them into wine. When a family harvests their crop, everyone is involved. Friends, relatives, neighbors. It takes everyone. We walked through the town of Villafranca del Bierzo. Leaving was an opportunity to choose our own adventure.
It's a little drizzly, and we just hiked up this mountainside.
And we had 3 options as for which way to take the Camino.
There's the main road that's level and follows the highway. There's the scenic route, which is what we're on, that climbs up to the right. Or there's the Dragonite route, which goes to the peak of each of the next 3 mountains. So it's up, down, up, down, up, down. So
That was too much.
yeah, we've got about an hour and a half window before the rain comes in again. So this is the best of both worlds, I think.
We kept following this dirt path, hoping it would lead us to exactly where we needed to be.
Oh, I say hi.
And we found it.
So sweet.
Albergue Lamas. This was an impressive welcoming committee. On one side, we have a sweet mama cat with kittens. Then there's the puppy Kacha, who loves everyone, and Kacha's cat friend, who loves Kacha.
Oh, Kacha loves you.
Albergue Lamas is owned by the Lamas family, who live in the town of Predella. At first, we were just stopping here for lunch and planned to keep walking. But then we started eating a Spanish tortilla, Santiago cake, fruit from their garden. It wasn't long before we changed our plans.
You're really sweet.
For the rest of the afternoon, this is pretty much all we did. We hung out with the youngest member of the Lamas family, who is likely the smallest and most effective ambassador for the town of Predella. Day 31 begins in a town I can barely say, Las Herrerías. It translates to mean the blacksmiths. We'll travel 13 miles today, and 5 of which will be by
We're about to go ride some Harleys. Ride some horses.
We first saw this opportunity advertised on flyers, posted in previous stops, offering a chance to ride to another town we struggle to say, Ocebreiro, but it looks like Ocebreiro.
Which is at the top of the mountain. And then...
Yeah, there we go.
The man in charge is Victor. These are a few of his horses, and he chose which ones we would be riding today. I've mentioned that I grew up around horses. Peter, however, did not.
Getting ready to ride these horses up to the top of the mountain. I've never seen one with horns before, but there she is.
You getting excited, Peter?
Yeah.
I'm on a horse. Yay, happy place.
You know the saying, the devil is in the details? Well, Peter and I prefer the divine is in the details, because there were so many significant details that appeared on our Camino that only God would know about.
This is a way better mode of transportation.
One example, the color of the horse I was given to ride. More than 30 years before this moment, I was here. That's me on the far right, at my grandparents' ranch in Lordsburg, New Mexico. Beneath me is my very first horse, which is also the same color as the horse I got to ride on this day, which is
the best.
Little details that mean so much, and details that only the divine scheduler could orchestrate. As each one of his steps,
I'm letting him pick the path,
takes us closer to the top of this mountain, we also get closer to leaving the region of Castilla y León and entering Galicia, where the Camino will end.
Special moment for the first time, riding right behind me, is Peter. You're doing such a good job. We are almost into the clouds.
We're not on the horse, but we are at
the top of the mountain.
And it's very cold.
To take a break from the wind, we sought shelter inside the Church of Santa Maria. This parish church dates from the 9th century. making it one of the oldest monuments on the Camino de Santiago. While inside, Peter read a pilgrim's prayer posted on the church's wall. It shared a message that we'll need to take with us as we get closer to ending our Camino.
Although I may have had food and water each day and enjoyed a roof and shower every night, or may have had my injuries well attended, if I have not discovered in all the love of God, I have arrived nowhere.
Uh-huh. I was definitely okay, just bundled as we left the town of Fonfria. Often, it wasn't the mountain trails that felt the most dangerous. It was walking by the roads.
It's cold and wet. There's Peter. His shin's giving him a little bit of trouble.
The best thing about the Camino is it takes you out of your comfort zone and puts you into a position where if you want to change your habits or change your perspective, it gives you the opportunity and supports you in that. If you are going through life and are hoping to make a change or figure things out, it gives you time to think and reflect.
Grateful for rain gear.
Yeah.
It's still fun though, right? Like when else do we just get to walk in the rain?
Yeah.
After the morning and previous afternoon of walking in the rain,
the sun is finally out. We've made it.
There's something really special about spending so much time walking in nature and also seeing the landscape around you slowly change. And I think that your body mimics that. I think your body is slowly changing just as much as the landscapes around you.
we'll stay the night here in Puerto Marin. Flowing through it is the Miño River. It's the longest river in Galicia. It also plays a role in the town's unique history, a part of which is relatively recent. In 1963, the Belisar Reservoir was built downstream. The result was the Miño River flooding the old village, the remains of which are now at the bottom of this river and can be seen when the water level is low. Before the flood, the most historic buildings, including this fortress church of San Juan, were moved uphill, brick by brick. The story of this town provides a great lesson for life. Cherish what is important and let the rest just wash away.
Kristin, you have any thoughts you want to share about what your Camino has been like?
I think so far for the Camino, the thing that I am taking away is that just how much I enjoy spending time with you. That's it. It's just been really nice. So yeah, best part of the trip so far, being with you.
We're 2.5 miles from Santiago de Compostela, so we've come a ways. It's been really nice because we haven't been able to see very far, and even looking at the city now, we see a portion of it because the rest is in a big fog bank.
We didn't plan on finishing today, but I really like it because we're the only pilgrims walking, because I would guess because of the weather and it's late. But I think if we finish now, that would be so exciting because we'd probably be solo. Well, welcoming us to the end of our Camino blackberries. And they were so tasty for our start of the Camino. What did you find?
Blackberries for my buddy.
That looks delicious. Can I offer them to you now because you offered them to me?
The exception of the middle, they have been consistently along the route.
Son le more. Still delicious. What'd you find?
Vending machine store.
Oh, look at that.
Got a little celebratory gummy bears.
Yay, where it all started.
Happy cola. Full circle. I looked for the cola, but they didn't have it. We gotta go gummy bears. It's like the celebratory cigar. You can't open it until you finish.
Oh, so you're gonna wait?
Can I wait? Let's go.
Nice.
Let's go. It's already getting dark, but we got 10 minutes before the sunset.
Really? Oh, is that it? Right there?
Sunsets in 7 minutes. Cathedral closes in 15, if it's open. Sunset has come and gone, but this is it.
This is it, right?
This is it. Did like a full circle around this thing.
Oh, so pretty. It's so pretty. Oh, wow. Made it.
Made it.
You deserve that gummy bear.
I'm gonna go lay down over here.
I'm glad we pushed to make it tonight.
Yeah?
I think it's really special.
But today was like, just a little further, just a little further. And it's really pretty.
I would not have wanted to walk with anybody else more than with you.
I also would not have wanted to walk with anyone else. I wouldn't have done this without you. Barely did it with you.
The morning after we arrived in Santiago de Compostela, we attended the Pilgrim's Mass. The cathedral was closed for construction, so the Mass was held around the corner in a different church. And we're off on a bus heading toward the town of Murcia. A legend says the Virgin Mary appeared here on a stone boat to encourage St. James, Santiago, in his efforts to spread Christianity. After his beheading in 44 AD in Jerusalem, St. James's body is believed to have been brought back here by boat and then carried to Santiago.
So I've got my rocks. We are between Finisterre and Murcia, the halfway point. I've got one for us. There's always going to be a struggle in this life, but I love you. And I hope I'm right here being supportive for you.
So my goal now is to take the Camino with me.
Yay, Laura!
Have you been looking back though? You haven't been looking back, have you? You need to look back at where you've come.
If a part of me did die that night in Zabaldika, it's a part of me that I no longer need.
This gentleman stopped whatever he was doing, and that guy was so helpful and like gave so much of his time. Wow.
Can you help me be okay with just being me?
Clothe yourselves with the beauty that comes from within, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is so precious to God.
The Camino provides. Everybody's presented with what they need when they need it.
Oh, if we just had someone who could sing. And there's Melissa.
My God is awesome, heals me when I'm broken, strength where I've been weakened, forever He will reign.
as I was crying out that negativity and that anger and that disappointment and my lack of strength, I was filled up with gratitude.
The Camino is an incredibly personal journey.
Peter took great care of me. He did a great job.
Braiding hair.
And I think it is a very, very precious opportunity to take time out and to actually make sense of whatever it is that you're trying to actually approach.
My God is awesome, Savior of the whole world.
I just felt that God was so thoughtful in working through people.
The final stop on our Camino journey is to Finisterre, or Fisterra. It's easy to see why in Roman times this was considered the end of the known world. And for us, it is the end of our Camino.
Are you happier now than before you started?
That's a really good question.
To wrap up our experience, we want to share with you the final life lessons that we've learned while walking this pilgrimage. We recorded them in Santiago the night before we left Spain.
One helpful lesson that the Camino taught over and over and over was that when things don't work out, it's because they're going to work out even better the next time. We had that lesson over and over again in the form of, all right, are we going to stay here? No, it's full. Let's go to the next place. Are we going to eat here? No, it didn't work out. Let's go to the next place. Just these subtle lessons on the Camino over and over and over again, like once a day for 6 weeks. And I think it just ingrains in us the next time something bigger doesn't go our way. We might think, oh, that was a failure. Well, was it? We don't know yet. So every single time that something doesn't go your way, just remember that God has your back. That if something doesn't work out, it's just because something better is around the corner. Or you need to learn some really hard lesson, but you're going to be so much stronger in the end. I think I'm more in a place to accept people where they are. I think at times I've felt like I needed to, change a family member or change people to be better or to fit what I expected of them or hoped for them. I just feel like I am ready to just be present and just enjoy people and meet people where they are. I think the number one lesson that I would share with people, even if they aren't physically able to walk the Camino, is that if something is not right in your life, make a change. It can be something subtle, it's just changing a daily habit, or it could be something extremely dramatic like what we did, quitting our jobs, getting rid of all of our stuff, and walking across the country. But make the change. Because if something isn't exactly how you want it to be, your life is not fulfilling, or you feel like there's something missing, or just something is off, act on that feeling, because it's not going to fix itself.
Are you happier now than before you started?
I feel like the word happy isn't the goal. Just a feeling of being neutral for me, I think, is the goal. Like, instead of the ups and downs, just kind of somewhere neutral in the middle. So in a high stress situation, not being stressed. Or in like a sad situation, realizing that there will always be ups and downs, but just maintaining a more level state of mind and just being calm.
These lessons continue to shape our lives.
Thank you.
Looking back at the day we left,
What's happening, Peter?
We're just saying our goodbyes.
we had no idea how the Camino would change us. We just hoped that it would.
We're going.
I don't even know where to look. There it is. Let's go.
A special thank you to you for going on this journey with us. Some of you sharing kind words, prayers, even scriptures along the way. Please know that your support made a difference. And we wish you the best of luck on your own journey.
Wherever it may take you.
Buen camino.